Television could mourn its dead, but first it had to finish the season. Red Foxx collapsed during rehearsal, and at first his castmates thought he was doing the same fake heart attack routine that had made him famous. Night Court lost one elderly bailiff to lung cancer, replaced her, and then lost her replacement to the same disease less than 15 months later. And when Dan Blocker died at just 43, Bonanza had an entire 2-hour story written for Hoss, so Michael Landon simply rewrote almost all of it for another Cartwright. 1. Barton Yarborough, Dragnet. Barton Yarborough had played Sergeant Ben Romero, Joe Friday's original partner, since Dragnet began on NBC Radio in 1949. He followed Jack Webb to television in 1951 and completed only 2 episodes. The day after filming the second, Yarborough suffered a heart attack and died 4 days later, on December 19th at 51. Webb did not simply make Romero disappear. 8 days later, the radio episode The Big Sorrow opened with a dedication to Yarborough. Friday arrived at work and learned that Romero had collapsed at home and died from the same cause. The television version aired in September 1952, again dedicated to Yarborough. Barney Phillips then stepped in as Friday's temporary partner, Sergeant Ed Jacobs. 2. George Cleveland, Lassie. George Cleveland had played Gramps Miller since Lassie began in 1954. By 1957, producers were already planning a cast transition and intended to send Gramps away with a broken hip. Then Cleveland died of a heart attack on July 15, 1957, at 71. Producer Robert Maxwell consulted a child psychologist and decided young viewers should be told that Gramps had died. Sponsor Campbell's Soup objected, and the final script avoided the words death and dying. In transition, the family said Gramps was gone, held a restrained funeral, and Timmy prayed for God to care for him. Ellen and Jeff Miller then left the farm, while Lassie stayed with Timmy and his new foster parents. 3. Frank Silvera, the High Chaparral. Frank Silvera played Don Sebastian Montoya, father of Victoria and Manolito, and a key figure in the High Chaparral. He died on June 11, 1970, at 55, after being accidentally electrocuted while trying to repair a garbage disposal at home. NBC still had completed footage, so Silvera appeared posthumously in the 4th season premiere and once more in October. The producers did not recast him. Months later, the 2-part The New Lion of Sonora revealed that Don Sebastian had died peacefully off-screen. His children returned for the funeral and expected Manolito to inherit Rancho Montoya. Instead, the estate went to Sebastian's irresponsible, debt-ridden brother, Don Domingo, played by Gilbert Rowland. 4. Arthur Leslie, Coronation Street. Arthur Leslie had played Jack Walker, landlord of the Rover's Return, from Coronation Street's 2nd episode in 1960. Jack and his wife Annie were among the soap's original anchors. Leslie's final appearance aired on June 24, 1970. 6 days later, while on holiday in Wales, he died from a heart attack. The writers first sent Jack to stay with his daughter in Derby, then gave the character the same cause of death as Leslie. The July 8th episode began after the news had already reached the street. There was no hospital scene or televised funeral. Jack's burial took place off-screen, out of respect for Leslie's family. Doris Speed, who played Annie, considered leaving but stayed until 1983. 5. Dan Blocker, Bonanza. Dan Blocker died on May 13, 1972, at only 43, after a blood clot developed following gallbladder surgery. Bonanza was preparing its 14th season, and Hoss Cartwright was built into dozens of scripts. One finished project was Michael Landon's 2-hour premiere, Forever. It had been written for Hoss. He would marry Alice Harper, lose her in a violent attack, and hunt the killers. After Blocker's death, Landon transferred almost the entire story to Little Joe. The series never showed Hoss's death or explained how he died. Ben briefly spoke of knowing what it meant to lose a son, and the camera lingered on Hoss's portrait. NBC canceled Bonanza later that season. 6. Freddie Prinze, Chico and the Man. Freddie Prinze was only 22 when he died on January 29, 1977, after a self-inflicted gunshot wound. Chico and the Man was in its third season, and Chico Rodriguez was half of the title. NBC aired the episodes Prinze had completed, with his final appearance broadcast on March 4th. For a time, the writers avoided saying Chico was dead and said he had gone to Mexico to visit his father. The network still ordered a fourth season. 12-year-old Gabriel Melgar joined as Raul, an orphan gradually taken in by Ed Brown. Almost a year after Prinze's death, Raul found Chico's belongings and demanded an explanation. Ed finally told him Chico had died. No cause was given. 7. Deanna Highland, 8 is Enough. 8 is Enough premiered on March 15, 1977, with Diana Highland as Joan Bradford, mother of 8 children. Highland was already gravely ill with breast cancer that had spread during treatment. She completed only 4 episodes and died 12 days after the premiere at 41. ABC continued the first season without formally explaining Joan's absence. When the show returned in September, Tom Bradford was already a widower. Joan had died between seasons. There was no funeral, recasting, or detailed explanation. Betty Buckley joined as tutor Sandra Sue Abby Abbott and gradually became Tom's love interest. The courtship moved slowly because both the family and audience were still grieving. Tom and Abby married before Season 2 ended. 8. Will Geer, The Waltons. Will Geer had played Grandpa Zeb Walton since 1972 and won an Emmy for the role in 1975. He died from respiratory failure on April 22, 1978, at 76, shortly after production of Season 6 ended. The producers chose not to recast him or invent a long trip. Season 7 opened with The Empty Nest, set after Grandpa's sudden death. Every member of the family reacted differently, while Ellen Corby returned as Grandma Esther despite the effects of her real-life stroke. The episode also shifted many of Zeb's practical duties to younger members of the household. His chair, barn, routines, and stories remained part of the series afterward. The Empty Nest aired 5 months after Geer's death. 9. Jim Davis, Dallas. Jim Davis was visibly ill during his final season as Jock Ewing. He had multiple myeloma, but continued working until production became impossible. Davis died on April 26, 1981, at 71. Dallas kept Jock alive off-screen for months. He and Miss Ellie went on a second honeymoon, then the State Department supposedly recruited him for an oil project in Venezuela. The family still received calls and letters from him. Eventually, Jock's helicopter collided with a small plane over South America and crashed into a lake. In the search, JR, Bobby, and Ray found wreckage and recovered Jock's medallion, but no body. The episode ended on his portrait at South Fork with the words, Jim Davis 1909-1981. 10. Will Lee, Sesame Street. Will Lee had played Mr. Hooper since Sesame Street's first season in 1969. After Lee died from a heart attack on December 7, 1982, at 74, producers considered recasting him or saying he had moved away. They rejected both ideas. Writers consulted experts in child psychology and development, then tested the script with children. Their rule was simple: no euphemisms. Mr. Hooper had died and was not coming back. In episode 1839, Big Bird brought portraits for his adult friends and saved Mr. Hooper's for later. The adults gently explained why he could not give it to him. The episode aired on Thanksgiving Day, 1983, so parents would be home. Mr. Hooper's portrait remained on the set. 11. Michael Conrad, Hill Street Blues. Michael Conrad's Sergeant Phil Esterhaus opened most Hill Street Blues episodes with roll call and the warning, "Let's be careful out there." He won 2 Emmys, but cancer reduced his appearances during Season 4. Conrad died from urethral cancer on November 22, 1983, at 58. Several completed episodes still aired afterward. In Grace Under Pressure, Captain Furillo announced during roll call that Esterhaus had suffered a heart attack while visiting his girlfriend, Grace Gardner. The precinct spent the episode absorbing the loss. Later, the officers learned Esterhaus had died during an intimate encounter with Grace, and ending production accounts said Conrad himself had preferred. Lucy Bates eventually inherited roll call duties, and colleagues occasionally repeated his famous warning. 12. Leonard Pierce, Only Fools and Horses. Leonard Pierce was filming the 4th series of Only Fools and Horses when Grandad became central to an episode called Hole in One. He completed 2 location scenes before suffering a heart attack. Writer John Sullivan visited him in hospital and expected filming to resume. Pierce suffered another heart attack and died on December 15, 1984, at 69, one day before production was due to continue. Sullivan quickly wrote replacement material. Strained Relations opened with Grandad's funeral and introduced his estranged brother, Uncle Albert, played by Buster Merrifield. The unfinished Hole in One could not be salvaged. Sullivan rewrote it around Albert, and Pierce's existing footage was abandoned. 13. John-Erik Hexum, Cover Up. John-Erik Hexum was filming the CBS series Cover Up on October 12, 1984, when a production delay turned fatal. His character used a .44 Magnum revolver loaded with blanks. While waiting, Hexum jokingly handled the prop revolver and accidentally caused a fatal close-range blank discharge. There was no bullet, but the close-range blast caused catastrophic injury. Hexum underwent surgery and remained on life support until he was declared brain-dead on October 18th. He was 26. His family donated his organs. CBS aired his completed episode, then introduced Anthony Hamilton as new agent Jack Stryker. In writer's block, officials told Danny Reynolds that Hexum's character, Mac Harper, had been killed during another assignment. The closing credits were replaced with a memorial. 14. Nicholas Colasanto, Cheers. Nicholas Colasanto's heart disease worsened during the 3rd season of Cheers. He lost weight, struggled with lines, and was hospitalized after Christmas 1984 with fluid in his lungs. Colasanto died from a heart attack on February 12, 1985, at 61. Because episodes were filmed out of order, coach Ernie Pantuso continued appearing for weeks afterward. The 4th season premiere revealed that Coach had died off-screen. Woody Boyd arrived from Indiana, expecting to meet the older bartender with whom he had exchanged letters and even pens through the mail. Sam told him Coach was gone. Woody stayed and became the new bartender. In the 1993 finale, Sam quietly straightened a photograph of Geronimo that had originally hung in Colasanto's dressing room. 15. Selma Diamond and Florence Halop, Night Court. Night Court lost the same cast position twice in 2 years. Selma Diamond, who played bailiff Selma Hacker, died from lung cancer on May 13, 1985, at 64. Season 3 opened with the courthouse mourning her, while Judge Harry Stone searched for a replacement. Florence Halop entered as new bailiff Florence Flo Kleiner. Halop completed the season. Then, on July 15, 1986, she also died from lung cancer at 63 after doctors discovered advanced disease following a stroke. Season 4 briefly acknowledged Flo's death, and Harry admitted how deeply both losses affected him. Producers abandoned the elderly bailiff formula. 32-year-old Marcia Warfield joined as the deadpan Roz Russell and stayed through 1992. 16. Ann Baxter, Hotel. Ann Baxter joined Hotel after Betty Davis withdrew following the pilot for health reasons. Baxter took over as Victoria Cabot, owner of San Francisco's St. Gregory Hotel. On December 4, 1985, Baxter collapsed while hailing a taxi in New York after suffering a massive stroke. She remained on life support for 8 days and died at 62. She had completed 19 of the season's 24 planned episodes, so Victoria continued appearing for months after Baxter's death. ABC announced that nobody would replace her. When Hotel returned for Season 4, Victoria had died off-screen. Her will transferred her share of the St. Gregory to general manager Peter McDermott, making him part owner. Christine Francis was promoted to general manager. 17. Red Foxx, The Royal Family. The Royal Family was supposed to be Red Fox's television comeback. The CBS sitcom premiered in September 1991, with Foxx playing retired postal worker Al Royale. During rehearsal on October 11th, Foxx grabbed a chair and collapsed. At first, people thought he was joking. On Sanford and Son, Fred Sanford repeatedly faked heart attacks. Della Reese realized it was real when he did not get up. Foxx died at the hospital that evening, at 68. CBS aired the 7 episodes he had completed. New Beginnings revealed that Al had died at a bowling alley and showed his funeral. Jackie Harry joined as a relative helping the family, but ratings fell. CBS canceled the series in 1992. 18. Mark McManus, Taggart. Mark McManus had played Glasgow detective Jim Taggart since 1983, and the series eventually took his character's name. By 1994, McManus was seriously ill. He was hospitalized with severe jaundice and died on June 6 from pneumonia associated with liver failure at 59. He died while an episode was still being made. The unfinished story explained Taggart's absence by repeatedly placing him in meetings with the chief constable while the other detectives handled the case. The producers neither recast him nor canceled the program. In 1995, Black Orchid opened with Taggart's funeral and said he had died in his sleep. Michael Jardine became lead investigator. The title stayed unchanged. Taggart remained on television until 2010. 19. Phil Hartman, NewsRadio. Phil Hartman was killed by his wife, Bryn, on May 28, 1998. She then took her own life. He was 49, and NBC had already renewed NewsRadio for a 5th season. The premiere, Bill Moves On, began just after Bill McNeil's funeral. Rather than reproduce Hartman's real death, the writers said Bill had suffered a heart attack. Each employee remembered a final encounter with him, and an empty chair remained at the conference table. The closing dedication read simply, "For Phil." John Luvitz, one of Hartman's closest friends, joined the next episode as Max Lewis, an insecure replacement newsreader. He did not imitate Bill and said he accepted the role partly because of Hartman. NewsRadio ended after that season. 20. Bill Owen, Last of the Summer Wine. Bill Owen had played Compo Simonite for 26 years when he became seriously ill during production of the Millennium Special Last Post and Pigeon. Despite severe pain, Owen insisted on finishing location work in France. Back in Britain, doctors diagnosed advanced cancer. He died on July 12, 1999, at 85. Several unfinished episodes still had to be completed, so producers used rewritten scenes, distant doubles, stock footage, and camera tricks. Writer Roy Clark then created a 3-episode farewell. Compo collapsed after seeing Nora Batty in a chorus girl costume and later died in hospital. His coffin was decorated with his trademark Wellington boots. 1 week later, a letter revealed Compo had a son, Tom, played by Owen's real son, Tom Owen.